I want something that's going to get my attention at the beginning. In terms of effective, that might not necessarily be the most emotional response ad, but I think it will be one of the most effective because of that link to very specific products.
Hi Laura, how are you?
I'm very good. Are you slightly warm in these jumpers?
I am warm in this jumper, yeah.
Well, that's because we are filming our Christmas episode today.
Absolutely. And we've got a very, very special guest with us today. Where did we get our guest from?
So we talked to Caroline Marshall, friend of the podcast.
Shout out to Caroline.
Hello, Caroline. Thank you so much for your great advice. And she said, if you are going to talk about Christmas ads, there is one person you need to talk to. And he is an absolute expert, not just in whether something is any good, but if it is going to sell any units.
We've got Matt Stockbridge, who is a media effectiveness expert, and he's worked on previous brands like Danone and Cadbury and Innocent, and he's here today to help us unpick the effectiveness of the Christmas adverts in 2025.
And you're even here sweating in a Christmas jumper too.
I am. I'm very pleased to be. I'm very proud to be wearing the AFC Wimbledon Christmas jumper. I think it's from a couple of seasons ago, and it's quite a strong image.
It's amazing.
I can't get enough of it.
It's an epic. It's a lovely, it's a great story, but that's for another time.
Well, we can't wait to get into the ads with you.
So just thinking about our audience then, so insight, strategy, innovation professionals working at some of the big brands. What are the principles that you'd love them to know about marketing effectiveness?
So, and this is really when you're evaluating creative and with a kind of an effectiveness head on. And so one of the key things that you're trying to work out straight away is, if you've not seen the brief, is what do I think they're trying to achieve through this? And if I haven't had any of that, I'm just watching on the TV, hopefully, probably towards the beginning, because of skippable and attention spans and everything else, I want something that's going to get my attention at the beginning. So you need something at the start to looking into getting a part of that. And so one of the first sort of metrics you have is around attention. So how as we're going through, I'm following a story. Is it one that's a slow kind of build to a climax, which is a risky thing, but can have a great reward? And John Lewis kind of classically will advertise that way.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Versus some of the retailers that will constantly want different things and products and parts of it. So the attention that runs through it. And for me, after I've reviewed it, and from Lecture 1 point is, okay, what's the action that you want someone to take as a result of this? And then can you measure that? Is it in sales, or is it in awareness, or is it footfall, or whichever? So hopefully within the brief of the campaign, there is something in the outcomes that hopefully that people are expecting.
And you mentioned also the importance of making people feel something.
Yeah.
It feels like this is more important at this time of year than any other.
That's right. So there's the ads that consistently kind of test well, there's an emotional kind of response. This time they're probably kind of warmth or joy or something, and probably even more so given the state of the country and everything else, Christmas hopefully being something to look forward to. So a positive emotion, or it can go the other way and be distaste or something, as long as it's not indifference. You want some response. So even after you've watched it first your own time, watching it again with someone else, just to watch how they're responding. And if you think you're not even seeing a flicker or an R or something, it's probably not going to be memorable.
And it's, if nothing else, a brilliant time of year where people are actually paying attention to ads, looking forward to ads. It's kind of the last of the golden age of where people go, have you seen this advert? So.
And it creates and we hear about, we started planning the Christmas campaign in January or February. So it's a long process going through of the getting to what we finally see. One of the challenges they have is, of course, everyone's going through that process. So in one ad break, we might be watching 3 or 4 different retailers talking about, come do your Christmas shop with us. A few talking about coming with some gifts, and then probably a fragrance ad, because there's always a fragrance ad that's a part of it this kind of time of the year.
Yes.
So that's the kind of the challenge, because they're trying to second guess. We want us to stand out so that people aren't going, was it the Tesco's ad? Was it the Sainsbury's, the one I see?
Of course, yeah.
And so that's when you're planning in isolation, it's fine to really see how this is going to stand out, but it's when it's on the TV and alongside everything else that you're seeing.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, without further ado, shall we get into it? We had an idea, because there's so many different ads we could talk about.
1 or 2.
So we thought maybe we'd start with some ones that tap into Christmas past.
Yes.
Maybe think a bit more about nostalgia.
Yeah.
We've seen quite a few of those this year. Adam, do you want to lead the fray with some of the ones that were top of mind for us?
Yeah, sure. So I think, there's a few ads that are playing on some of the ads that they've had in previous years. So I think we've seen the Sainsbury's ad has the BFG again. Yeah. We've seen the Barber ad using kind of Wallace and Gromit again. We've got the Grinch coming in for Asda. Yeah. So I think there's definitely some brands there which are kind of using nostalgia as a play to kind of, I guess, warm the hearts and create that emotional connection.
And arguably, even with Argos and with Aldi, they've created characters themselves that they're, and they're trying to build that as well without relying on something that's established. So there's those two things, but you're right. Those things probably have a bit more history and memories for people to tap into.
Yes. I mean, should we take Sainsbury's with the BFG? I mean, I think it only really made sense to me if you had seen the first version of the BFG, which I think was last year. The BFG needed help creating a Christmas dinner. So he enlisted the help of one of the people that worked at Sainsbury's to create a fabulous Christmas dinner. Yes. And I think it was kind of funny. It made sense. Yeah. It was different because obviously there's a BFG in your advert. And I think that just kind of creates, I'm guessing, some kind of memory structures because you're doing something a bit, jarring, you're not used to seeing. Yeah. And so the follow-on this year had a sort of similar kind of idea where the BFG was involved in the Christmas advert, but it didn't really make sense to me as a sort of storyline. It just felt like it was, let's just use him again. Yeah. And I didn't really fully follow through on the thread. What were your thoughts on that?
So this is the thing when I look creative, you have your kind of, this is my kind of personal view on that. And people usually can kind of stop there because you can sort of say, well, either I like it, I don't like it, these are the reasons why. So my feeling about it was a bit similar to you in that the storyline, it was like, we're doing this, we're delivering this there, there's turkey with all the trimmings, there's this happening, this happening, this happening. And the thing I'm always looking for in a supermarket one is that there's quite a big shop happening at Christmas. There's this theory, I think, that shoppers have that, it'll be closed, days afterwards, so I better stock up on loads of other stuff while I'm there. So you get this boost. The shops are open, but, it's an old-fashioned kind of thing. So I think it's quite important to start tying it into things that are going to make, because I could discretionally choose between a number of them. And so what I'm looking for in that, from an effectiveness point of view, is a link into a product or something or an idea that's going to make me think, actually, no, I will go there because then I can get this. Why are their turkeys better than someone else's, or their Brussels sprouts or something else? Or it's usually the kind of party food thing, which is what M&S have kind of done. And so for me, the Sainsbury's one, if you're saying, I'm not quite sure I can remember the previous year one, presumably if they've kept it going, they've believed that it has enough traction to draw people into it. So they've got BFG, they see the story. That's to remind me, I'm definitely going to go to Sainsbury's. I trust them with my Christmas shop. So I feel like it may appeal to existing Sainsbury's shoppers to reassure them. I don't know whether it will. I'm not sure I can see how that's going to make me switch from if I usually go to M&S or
Tesco. I was interested in the idea of, the BFG as a sort of nostalgic piece of equity in itself. Like the majority, I would say, of like sort of parents now would probably have grown up with the BFG. So I was wondering if perhaps it was a sort of trying to evoke a little bit of the warm feeling and kind of family vibes or storytime vibes that you would associate with that. But do you think that 1 + 1 equals like more, or is it dilutive?
So it's a very interesting point about the target audience, and particularly if you recognize, actually, I'm not a part of that. So there may be a big group of shoppers, female, had kids, or that sort of age group, who are going to exactly tuck into that sort of thing.
Yes.
I think it's a similar thing around the John Lewis ad, because I think there's a whole group of probably men, a bit older, thinking I am there on that dance floor, jumping up and down and so on.
Yeah.
But a whole other generation, and whether those are the key shoppers, we've all got to relate to that story and feel sympathy for it and embrace it, and then think, actually, now I'll go and shop at John Lewis. So when it's important to kind of bear that point in mind. It could well be reaching an audience that isn't you, but actually resonates very well with them.
I think you've made an excellent point, which is we need to keep attention going. So it's about time we had a boost in the interview and get the drinks out.
Perfect. Anybody for a winterberry spritz?
Do you know? I'm so glad you've said that, because unless you'd have said, would you like some Sussex Charmer, was the cheese featured in the Waitrose ad, which would have been my second choice. This was right up there. A spritz.
I often wake up of a morning
that's right.
hankering for a winterberry spritz.
Yeah, we're just not allowed to tell anyone that's listening what time of the morning this is.
Or that it's November.
It's so festive at the moment.
So you made a great point about John Lewis there, that actually that is tapping into a very specific nostalgia moment, which a certain cohort are going to really identify with. And it does feel like there's been a lot of conversation around that music, around that emotional identification with the dad.
Yeah.
But if we took a step back and said, let's think about it in terms of effectiveness, what are your thoughts?
It is for me. It's a bit of a challenge because it's beautifully shot and told, and the characters are very good and strong, and they work. There's no celebrities, just a family. So it's really playing into that. I can relate. These are relatable. Choosing, a guy and communicating with his son is, that's very on message and so on. There's almost a bit where it starts off kind of Christmassy, and then I'm sort of forgetting it's about Christmas.
It takes you out, doesn't it? Yeah.
So then it comes through to the bit at the end, and there's the kind of the thing, and they're relying on the person watching it to make all of those kind of connections. Oh yeah, so nostalgia, communication. It's important to talk, and actually buying a gift can start a conversation, and do the John Lewis, and the text appears, and it's two sets. So, and John Lewis was so famously like never knownly undersold, but then have kind of tweaked sometimes their kind of banner. So for me, I'm worried that they're making it more difficult for people to then, from that, think to actually, I'll go to John Lewis to do my Christmas, get some presents, get some gifts. I probably have some reinforced warm feelings towards John Lewis.
Yes.
And they're usually reinforced each year. But there's a point sometimes I'll see with certain campaigns that run, and I think possibly this happened with Aldi. There's so much success with a Christmas campaign that sometimes they lose a bit of sight of the reasons of the sum of the parts that make that. So for example, in that one, they're saying, by the way, there's the vinyl, you can get it in the store. So I don't know whether it's compelling for a load of people to think, actually, no, I'll go and get that from John Lewis, as opposed to fuse a bit whether it was the telescope or something else.
Yeah. It feels like you can sell way more penguins than you can sell those vinyls.
Exactly. And I think sometimes creatively and stuff, it can be difficult to, because we want more of the moving. It's a piece of artwork. It's something on beyond that. You can get a lot of pressure to do that. And I think John Lewis is somewhere nearer that. So I'm not sure from an effectiveness, like driving sales, improving them versus what they said, it will be a success.
Can I ask you a question, Matt, about
try some spritz?
Enjoy the spritz, yeah. I'm going to pour myself one as well.
That's just like Christmas in a cup.
Can I ask you a question about the strategy of that John Lewis advert?
Yes.
I would.
Do we know what it is?
I would guess.
Yeah.
This is a guess that the majority of their shoppers are women, and I would guess that the majority of gift giving is done either woman to man or women to children. This is just a guess.
It's a fair
But they've
point.
seemed to have targeted men and teenage boys who I think are probably quite low down on the gift giving list.
Yeah,
do you think the emotional connection it builds with with the women or the families is enough to kind of?
It's an interesting take. I saw it more from a point of view of men in general thinking I should be a bit more proactive. And probably you could easily segment, look at it and say, it's the challenge, like there's an opportunity, there's a gap, there's an undertrade, we'll target them. And the downside with that approach is if you do that, there's fewer of them. If you target your core audience, that's where there's more eyeballs, there's more sales. So you've got sort of the one hand, they say, oh, well, these will keep them anyway, and we're going to go extra there. And it's a challenge. When I worked at Cadbury for several years, we never used to advertise at Christmas. And when I joined them, we started doing effectiveness and measurement. And our Milka brand in other countries had a Christmas ad which had these distinctive assets. Within 1 or 2 seconds, you knew it was a Milka ad. There was a lilac cow, it was on the hills, it's sort of Heidi type thing. And then they would have novelty products appearing in it, and it was a similar sort of iteration. But the return on investment at Christmas was great. So we were sharing this point in the UK and said, why don't we advertise at Christmas? Oh, well, because we sell lots of chocolate anyway. There's a natural peak in sales. And we say, yeah, but I think we could probably sell, but there's still discretion going on within that, and there's still choice. And we did the first campaign, and it's taken a few years to get it right. And now, Cadbury's Christmas campaigns, most people think, they do them every year. But there was a time when they didn't. So I think when there's a natural increase in sales, or you're the biggest audience you can reach, is probably safer and will drive effectiveness.
Yes.
However, reaching the targets that you don't currently do can also maybe drive longer term growth and is also important. So it's a balance.
And I think there might be an opportunity this year to your point, drive more emotion in the advertising, just because of, obviously with adolescents coming out and it being in the kind of the topic of conversation around teenage boys and
exactly.
and manhood. I mean, I watched the advert in 2 sittings because the first time I was on the train and I burst into tears and I was like, I started weeping. Turn this off.
I'm so pleased, Adam, because I see you emotionally sometimes. Just think if you could just connect, and I am so pleased that it's an advert that has drawn this out of you, and it shows the power.
Finally,
I cry on a lot of adverts.
Good. We can do another thing about that on the really emotional response, and that's spot on. But it's when it resonates, when it really captures you, and we've all had those kind of moments, joking aside, it is very, very powerful, and also makes it talkable as well. And so that's also the subtlety about it, which in terms of effectiveness is a grey area for us, is sort of like, but this is being talked about more than previous ones. This is getting the message out. Whether you liked it or not, or you're sure, 100%. It's causing an opinion.
I completely agree with you. And I think having spent the year looking at a lot of future trends and a lot of sort of state of the nation, the idea of deeper connections, men's mental health, and also a kind of sense of finding joy in perhaps things that have been disappointing. I think there is, for this generation, a sense of I work and work and work, and I've got all these responsibilities, but I don't necessarily have the status, the certain job, or the house, the car. I'm not like the sort of man of the house in the way that I've seen that in a lot of research. So I do think it taps into this idea of let's just be joyful, let's just connect to something meaningful. And I really hope that continues as a kind of spirit.
I think you're right in this, in driving a positive and good emotional response to issues that happen. But there's always this danger of people saying, I don't want to be reminded of that at Christmas. I don't want to have to think about all the stuff that's bad or the difficult things. I just want the joy. The Tesco one is sort of talking about all the things that go wrong. And the argument, it's just like, well, I think you haven't given the payoff as much to cheer everybody up at the end.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be an interesting response to see. And I would love to understand, obviously, from their perspective, how they would see the results and on what metrics or which people they're trying to reach.
And as you said, perhaps not the clear through line as we move into Christmas present that we might see in something like an M&S ad, where I think, we can all see there are very tangible links to products you can buy in store. Tell us your thoughts on that one.
When you're looking at the M&S ad or any ad, I used to say is if it can't be beautifully creative and emotional and everything else, it can still be effective. Mm-hmm. And we've had a lot of campaigns, and I've worked on a lot of campaigns in the past that we all sort of go like, this isn't great work, but the media agency done an incredible job in how they've bought the media and where we've put it and so on. And if we just imagine we have some great creative, we could be even better. But you can still have stuff that's very effective. Even M&S, I think it's a nice story. There's a bit of truth about the driving home, the Chris Rea reference, and Dawn French, very, very familiar. So some nice box sort of ticking. I think and then sort of even getting over the thing about having Christmas dinner in the back of a van, and so I can be quite literal. I think it's okay, I'll jump onto Christmas, it's fine. But I was still sort of, I probably emotionally kind of, I had it right at the beginning and stuff, and then I'm sort of lost a bit. But the great thing for me is they're saying, there's this tiger prawn pile bite thing. Oh, and I'm a foodie, so I'm thinking, I wonder what that's like. I'm buying it. And it goes, and then there's a salt and vinegar batter. I'm thinking, I don't know. So just these little references.
And Tom Kerridge as well.
And Tom Kerridge's pate. And I know someone else will say, well, that's just, we had this great comms, and then someone's told us to put in some lines that are jarring a bit. But in terms of effective, that might not necessarily be the most emotional response ad, but I think it will be one of the most effective because of that link to very specific products that you could probably only get at M&S.
Do they have like a special trick that they do that makes those moments memorable? Like, is there something in the way that they describe and show the product? Because I feel like I remember
M&S food.
really well. I'm like,
all the ones that we've watched over the last week.
The fish and chip canapé. And I'm thinking, how did that happen? Because
I think M&S, there is a whole science around shooting for everything else. And if you go back to when M&S did their first ever, this is not just chicken. This is an M&S chicken and everything else. And it's a really simple concept. Here's a roast chicken, there's some roast potatoes and veg and gravy and stuff. And we all watched that and we all immediately thought, I want to have a roast chicken now. I might as well go and get it from M&S. And that all the other retailers responded to that, started doing their own ones, pushing their kind of more premium private label ranges, and obviously all of M&S is premium technically. So they've always, I think, been the best at knowing how to shoot food to make it look so appetizing.
I can still picture the back of the van going up and it just gleaming with just all of that amazing food. Yeah.
Clear cuts, clear moments. There's signposting into this and now this is happening. Whereas if you think most of them, the retailer ones will have a table laid out with Christmas dinner. Yeah. They will have that. But sometimes it felt like, it's sort of like, well, now here comes, look like the L'Oreal ads, like here comes the science. They used to sort of say this is the science bit. Yeah. It's like, here comes the Christmas table.
Right.
Yeah. And I think they all think they need to do that. But I think you just have, there's attention to detail. There's something about what M&S do that, as I said, makes it and maybe it's describing it. I don't know.
This goes back to what Richard Shotton was saying about concreteness, doesn't it? Like everybody has got an abstract idea of a Christmas table with wine and turkeys and sprouts and potatoes. Yeah. But if you're describing yours as the Tom Kerridge,
exactly,
you've anchored it in something that's just easy to remember.
Do you remember there was it Waitrose? They did a Heston Blumenthal Christmas pudding with a tangerine.
Tangerine inside,
And it went viral. We don't say that anymore, but it just absolutely flew, and everyone kind of wanted it. And people were talking about having their Christmas dinner, like going, by the way,
we got one.
We've got the Christmas pudding.
eBay was tougf.
It's a Christmas pudding with a piece of fruit in it. No.
I had to meet someone down a dark alley to get it.
Exactly. And those, that's. Like as I said in the Waitrose ad, they just happened to mention when Joe meets Kira that they both asked for Sussex Charmer. It's a very nice sort of cheese. I'd be fascinated to know, how well that happens to do, because they've just picked that out as a product that,
Well, can I just ask you about that one as a point of contrast? Yeah. Because I think it's a really interesting point about remembering the retailer, because actually that's probably one of the ads where you see people in a supermarket.
Yes.
And it shows the deli counter, and it, in a way you sort of think, it's showing me a lot of distinctive brand assets. So what's your thoughts on that one as a tool?
I think so I've probably made the error of watching the 4-minute version. I think from an effectiveness point of view, absolutely into a store, mentioning that thing creates a bit of a memory about that. But I think it's possible, because that's just one part. And it depends on the edit on the smaller one, because in that one, you think one of the main food reps says, I'm going to make the turkey pie. And so, Jules is making this turkey pie that's the mother's recipe of Keira Knightley's mum. And you think, but is this, I can't remember seeing, was that Waitrose flour? Was that Waitrose, this was a part of it? There was maybe something about what was about this that was linking back to Waitrose. So by the end, when they have the kind of, all ends happily ever after, for me, it's drifted a bit from, it's just a very, very nice kind of funny story. And I think there was a better opportunity in that to link more stuff. I think if the M&S thing, you would say, you could have him just picking up a thing saying, it's just the Tom Kerridge, that'll be good.
So, and finally, I'd love to talk about, we're calling this Christmas's Future, aren't we? Yeah. And I think we're calling it Christmas's Future because it's doing something very, very different. Yeah. So this is a JD Sports ad.
Interesting.
And I think to understand the current year ad, you kind of have to see 2024's ad,
Yep.
which has an amazing, just an amazing depiction of Christmas celebrated in lots and lots of different ways, by their target audience. And it's kind of all about the family and bringing them together. Now, this year's ad, it feels like is exactly the same aesthetic, feels kind of similar, but there doesn't really seem to be a narrative or almost anything to do with Christmas in there. It just feels like they've decided Christmas is the time when gifts are bought and people go shopping. Let's just get into people's, memories at this point in time.
From my point of view, the questions the conversation we've had around the target audience and stuff, and putting yourself in that position. So objectively, let's say we were all working on that camera and everything else, we would think, I think we've nailed it here. This is all kind of our impression of that generation and what they're interested in, what they're doing. So I'd need to sort of reflect them saying, is this authentic? Is this going to resonate with them? Because it's quite nuanced, and this generation kind of will spot stuff where they think it's kind of contrived. But it looks to me like it's very well done. It's not contrived. It's exactly what it is. A load of, user created content, and it's thrown together. The other interesting thing about for me is there's lots of references to the brand within it, in case anyone watching is a bit older, is confused by the amount of stuff that's happening. And the other part, which will be interesting, is as you said, it's very different from everything else that we're probably going to see. And there's an old thing: if everyone's going in this emotional roller coaster, here's a plate of food, here's some hero products, route, do something. Go the other way, because then you'll stand out.
I live very close to a JD Sports, and I think aesthetic-wise, it does really match the brands you see, the people you see in the pictures. So they've got like some famous faces in there, which you will also see on the posters and the billboards and stuff around JD Sports when you visit. So I think there was probably enough there to make you. I felt it looked like a JD Sports advert, even though I'm not even the direct. Demographic.
And that's always why we talked about distinctive assets. I think Cole Palmer's in there as well, which is such a resonating figure. So actually, if it's a bit like the old sort of fashioned kind of approach of something. The TVC is maybe the core of the campaign. There's a number of assets we're creating out of this that we can then use in store. We can use something else. So I would hope it's part of a broader campaign to get that message, to make those kind of conversations and links.
I'm wondering, based on what we were saying earlier, where you said, actually, maybe we can stretch to a slightly different demographic. I wonder if that's what they've done from a media perspective, where they've said, yes, we know this is our core audience, but actually this is a time of gifting. This is a time kids are going to ask for things from family. Like, if we're top of mind as a, being seen to get a generation, perhaps people who are a bit older might reach out to that brand, even if they know it's not for them.
And it could even be because of the vertical aspects. Like, actually, this is we're going to be serving this on mobile.
Absolutely. And the fact that it's little micro segments means you can make that a 6-second ad or a 15-second ad or a pre-roll.
It's very well branded, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. So the fact that it is so different and could well stand out versus the other stuff that we're seeing could make it very, very effective.
Fantastic. So Matt, if you were to give us your top pick in terms of effectiveness this year, where does your judgment lie?
I think the most effective ad is going to be the M&S one, because it has the most clear references to specific products, and there's already a lot of love, and there's a lot of and M&S have had a difficult kind of year with one way or another and bits and pieces. So it's sort of, I think for a lot of people will probably, there's a lot of love for that brand, and there's a lot of love, and everyone knows about the quality, so they don't have to remind people about that sort of thing. And so if they just need money, and by the way, we sell stuff that's really good and interesting. I mean, it's bang on the target audience, and I'm the target audience.
Yeah. We kind of see it as our civic duty to eat these canapes now.
I really need to get some salt vinegar batter, So I think, simply because it has the most of a product link into, an action in store.
Lovely. Well, what a great note to end on. We really enjoyed chatting to you about this.
It's been great fun.
Yeah, that's been brilliantly revealing. Thank you very much for joining us, Matt.
Thank you.
So I absolutely love that as a way to end the year. Thoughtful, fun, and really great reflections.
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I learned a lot. It's quite easy to watch these ads and just kind of give your own personal take on them, but it's quite nice to have someone there with you to unpick them and understand what's been going on behind the kind of creative idea.
And lots more to come in 2026.
Yeah, absolutely. See you next year. And if you enjoyed that episode, we recommend that you listen to the conversation that we had with Fiona Hughes all about creator marketing. Why should brands care about this attention economy, and what's in it for them?
I've been in the industry for about 10, 12 years, and the size and scale of it is honestly unprecedented. So stats now from the likes of Goldman Sachs and Business Insider say that the creator economy globally is worth about 250 billion right now. That's set to almost double in just the next 2 years alone. So marketing spend in creator marketing is increasing even when other marketing spends are going down.